video, we will learn how to create our MongoDB database and how to access the database using a graphic user interface. And we will also learn how to load the data onto our database server and how do we query data from the MongoDB server. In order to set up your MongoDB database, you will need to have two tools. The first one is called a MongoDB Atlas. We can create a MongoDB Atlas account. And this is a cloud server hosted by MongoDB. And it's a free account that we can use to create a MongoDB server instance. The second tool that you're going to use is called MongoDB Compass. And this is a graphic user interface that will allow us to connect to the server and to be able to create the data and query the data on the server. All right, let's get started. The first step I would like you guys to do is to create a MongoDB Atlas account. So you can simply search for MongoDB Atlas register, and this will take you to a registration page. And here you can put your first name, last name, your company, you can put Indiana University, and your email, your password, and you will create your free Atlas account. So once you created your Atlas account, MongoDB may ask you to verify your email address. Please just follow the instruction to verify your email and maybe even set up two-step verification. So for me, I have already created my account, so I will just log in. When you first log in, you may be prompted to answer a few questions. These are optional, so for me, I will just skip personalization. Once you logged in, right now you can see I do not have any cluster under my account. On the left-hand side, there is a navigation menu. So by default, we are on the dashboard. So from here, you can connect it to clusters, you can look at backup, you can also configure the security settings, and we will go over some of those options later on. And on the top, you can see that because when I registered my account, I indicated Indiana University as my affiliation. If you would like to create more organization, you can do so, and you can click on view all the organization, and you can create a new one. All right, so right now it's an empty server. Let's go ahead and create something called cluster. And on MongoDB, a cluster is your own server space. Click on create. In MongoDB, you can choose what kind of server you would like. For this class, I'm going to use a free server. The data that we're going to load into MongoDB is pretty small, and the free server is sufficient for learning and exploring MongoDB in our class. And the free server will come with 512 megabytes of storage. All right, so now you can give a name to your cluster. So I'm going to call this K533. And you can choose a provider. So these providers are cloud providers. I'm going to choose the default one, which is AWS. But if you want to choose Google Cloud or Azure, you can simply change that. In terms of the server, it will automatically match me to an East Coast server in North Virginia. So I'm going to keep that as a default. All right, so let's go ahead and create the deployment. So once you are created the K533 cluster, you will see that the database will ask you to create a user. The first user that you're going to create will automatically become the administrator account. In this class, to keep things simple, I'm going to change the default username and the password to make them simple for me to remember. So I'm going to use my IU username, and I'm going to use the same thing as my password. This is not very secure, but it's easy for me to remember. I'm not going to put any important data here. So once you're done, you click on Create Database User to create the user. which is administrator user. Once you click on that, you will see that database user turns green. Later on, if you would like to create more users, we will be able to use the left panel to create new users. So now let's move to the next. The server space that we just created is called K533. And this is on the cloud. In order to access the data, we have to use some connector to the server. There are many different ways that we can access the data. One way you can use is a graphical user interface called MongoDB Compass. Or if you are more tech savvy and you are comfortable with command line tools, you can use the MongoDB shell. And this is typically faster. Or you can use MongoDB with VS Code, or you can use with Atlas SQL. In this class, I'm going to use MongoDB Compass, and this is a graphical user interface. So let's click on the first one. So when you are new to MongoDB, if you have not installed MongoDB Compass before, please go ahead and choose the version to download. And here you can choose based on your computer. You can download the corresponding version. So download it and install it on your local computer. For me, because I already have MongoDB Compass installed, there's a connection string. And this connection string is very, very important. And this is how we are going to connect to our MongoDB server later on. So I'm going to copy this, and later on we're going to use it in MongoDB Compass. All right, so I'm click on done here. Come back to your dashboard, and you can do a refresh if you need. And you can see now I have a cluster up and running, and this is called K533. And right now, it is an empty server space. It does not have any data. Okay. If you go to Browse Collections, and right now, there's some sample data there, but we don't have our own database currently loaded on MongoDB. If we come back to the dashboard, you will be able to verify the status of your current server. And later on, if you have a lot of more data, you can upgrade your server as well. There are a few things that I would like to change before we upload the data. If we go to database and network access, so here are the list of users that we currently have. As you can see, by default, we only have one. This is the one that we just created earlier, and it is admin account. So when we access data on the server, we never want to access data using the admin account. So therefore, we're going to create a new database user, and this is a user that will just be a regular user instead of admin user. Okay. So to keep things simple, I'm going to use the same username and password. And for me, I'm going to call this as demo. Again, this is not very secure, but it is easy for me to remember. All right. So if you want, you can add some description. For this user, I'm going to use a built-in role. After I connect to the database using this user, I would like to be able to load the data into the server. I also would like to query the data. So therefore, when I choose the role of this user, I would like to give this user both read and write to any database that we have on this server. Okay. All right. And I'm going to click on Add User. All right, so now you can see there is one more user called a demo. And this is user that we just created. And this user can read and write any database that we have. And the other user that we had before is Atlas admin, who is the owner of the server. The other thing I would like to change is to allow any computer in the world to be able to connect to the server from anywhere. So let's go to IP access list. Right now, you see that the allowed access is my current IP address. However, if I turn off my computer and I reopen it tomorrow, then my IP address will dynamically change and I will not be able to access the server. So in order to allow a dynamic IP address to access the data, I'm going to need to whitelist them. So let's click on Add IP address. And again, I would like to be able to connect to this server from anywhere in the world. No matter what is the IP address, my computer is automatically assigned. So I'm going to allow access from anywhere in the world. Click on that button and you can see all the zeros showing up. If you would like to add a little bit control in terms of security, you can also say this is only temporary and I will delete this IP access after a week. So for me, again, because the data is not real data, I'm going to allow IP address access from anywhere for unlimited time. Click on confirm. Now you can see any computer with any IP address will be able to access the server. Coming back to the dashboard, if you forgot your connection string, we can come to K533 and click on this connect button. This will take you back to the connection setup. With MongoDB Compass, we can just use a connection string. And this is a connection string that we will use. So make sure that we copy this connection string. And later on, we're going to use that in MongoDB Compass. Let's now move to MongoDB Compass. Now that we already have a MongoDB server instance up and running, let's now connect to that server using MongoDB Compass. Please make sure that you start the MongoDB Compass on your computer. We will start by adding a connection to the server space that we previously connected. Let's click on Add New Connection. So here, we are going to need a URL connection string. This is a connection string that we previously showed on the K533 server space. So we are going to replace this with our connection string. If you forgot your connection string, you can always come back to your MongoDB Atlas and then click on this connect button. And this will give you the connection string. Copy that and come back to the MongoDB Compass. You do need to make a few changes here. So as you can see, now you have your server name here. However, we need to replace the username and the password with the username and password that we previously created. For me, I have username and password both as a demo. Okay. And you can see your server also has a name, and this is your server address. And if you want, you can change the color of your server, but I'm going to just leave with no color. You can also click on Favorite this connection. Next time when you connect to the server, it will automatically show up in your library. There are also advanced connection options. In this class, we don't really need to change anything there. All right, so let's save and connect. Once you're connected, you should be able to see K533 on your left panel. For me, I also have a few other ones because I previously created multiple clusters on MongoDB. So select the one that you just created. Here you can see by default, you already have some database. So the admin is empty. Local here is empty. The sample database, however, comes with some preloaded data collections. You can click on any of these to see what kind of data are already preloaded for you for your exercise or exploration. I would like to load my own database on this server. So there are multiple ways that we can do this. One way is that you can go back to your server and you can click on Create Database. Here you can give a name to your database. Suppose I just call this as MongoDB Lab. And you should also give a name to your collection. So the collection name should be similar to the table name. Okay, so in the previous video, we mentioned that the collection is equivalent to a table in relational database. Inside the collection, we're going to have individual document, and each individual document is similar to a particular row that we have in a relational database. Then within each document, we have individual fields, and those fields are equivalent to the columns that we typically see. So the collection name here depends on the table name that you try to create. In this demo, I would like to use a restaurant. If you have not downloaded this yet, please go ahead and download the restaurant JSON file and the cities JSON file from session 5. Okay, now create database. All right, so now you can see that I created my own database, and this is called MongoDB Lab. Inside this database, I now have one collection. Think of this as a table. Okay. But the collection has no data at this point. So let's try to import the JSON file that we downloaded into this MongoDB database. Again, there are many different ways that we can import the data. So one way is that we can simply click on import data. And now you can select the file from your local drive, the restaurant.json file. Okay, import. Now you see a notification that import is completed, and in total, we have 517 documents imported. This means these are the 517 restaurants imported into our collection. So each block here is a particular restaurant. It is a JSON file. So you can see there is a unique ID, and then there is a address of the restaurant. And you can see the street address, the zip code, these are embedded in the address field. And you can also see the different grades the restaurant has received over the years. We can also see the neighborhood of the restaurant. This is one way to view the data. By looking at the raw JSON file, you can click on any field to expand it. Another way that we can look at restaurant data is to view it as a table. So you can click on this little table icon here, and this will convert the JSON format into a more table structure. The underlying storage is still in JSON file, but it will just make it much more intuitive for human beings to view the data if it's presented in a table format. All right. If you would like to add individual restaurant, you can click on Add Data, and this will allow you to import additional JSON files, or you can insert one restaurant at a time to insert the document. This is the first collection that we create. The second collection I would like to import is a city table. Coming back to the MongoDB lab, and you could say create collection and this green button, or alternatively, you can click on this little plus sign next to MongoDB lab. This will also create collection for us. The second one, I want to call this as cities. Previously, we imported the data, but this time I can show you that you can directly copy and paste the JSON files into a text box to insert the data. So let's say add data, and we will insert documents. And these will give you an empty canvas to start with. And I'm going to delete this. And then I'm going to open my cities JSON file. You can see on my screen, I have JSON file opened in a text editor. I can just copy the whole thing and come back to Mongo Campus. and paste that. And you can do a quick check to see if everything looks fine. Now click on Insert. This is a smaller collection, and you can see in total we only have 20 different cities in this little collection. These are major cities around the world, and you can see for each city we have the name of the city, the country, the continent, and the population of the city. So far, we have created a server space on MongoDB Atlas, and then we create a database called MongoDB Lab. Inside this particular database, we loaded two different collections. One is restaurant data, the other is city data. In the live session, we are going to learn how we can query the data from restaurants and cities. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you in class.